Welcome to Rave Green Magazine. I'm your host, Matt Page, here and tonight, and I've got, of course, our Seattle Side Up soccer editor, Rich Michelson, with us, and, of course, our editor-in-chief, Abraham DeWeese. We're here to kind of discuss the Sounders, do a season in review, and we'll just kick it right off. I want to kick it to Rich. Let's just start from the beginning. What were some of your favorite moments this season?
You know, I had a lot of favorite moments, but two or three come to mind. Brad Evans in the CONCACAF Champions League game, the end of the game, it's 10 minutes into stoppage time because the other team has just absolutely gone insane trying to ice him. And he steps up to the penalty spot and buries it and then talks trash to the other keeper. Loved that moment. There was a goal in the very first game of the season against New England Revolution where it was a give and go between Obafemi Martins, Clint Dempsey, and Marco Papa. And at the end of it, I think Dempsey literally walks the ball, dribbles the ball into the goal. It was that wide open. It was just one of the coolest, funnest moments. And then, I have to say the Sounders rallying, it wasn't one singular moment in that. The end of the season, after a terrible middle of the summer, end of the season, they rallied, pushed strong into the playoffs, and just seeing the team come together despite all of the injuries and downside of the season. Those were probably my high points.
All right. All very good. What about you, Abraham?
My favorite moments, I have two of them. There was a period where we got Ramon Torres, Nelson Valdez. We brought back Eric Freiberg. I mean, that was great to see a team understand that depth was an issue, and they went out and grabbed those guys as well as Ivanovic. And it was just all in a week and a half time. My other favorite part was, again, another set of moments, and that was the 6-7 games where Obafemi Martins scored a goal in each game.
Okay. Very good moment.
Absolutely. That was awesome.
Very awesome. Absolutely. So I want to talk about some of the newcomers. Rich, who do you think were our best newcomers this season?
I think the single best newcomer this season has to be Tyrone Mears. He's kind of unheralded, one of these high potential but low promise guys, always injured, always team hopping, never sticking around. And finally, at more the tail end of his career than at the beginning, he lands in Seattle, comes in, and has a great season. And he made nothing's official yet, but he's definitely in the running for best MLS best 11 at right back. He's made a number of sports writers best 11 at the right back position. He at one point of the season, he was the single most potent offensive weapon that the Sounders had, which spoke, of course, to their injuries. But he was very consistent, shut down opposition wingers all season, and was something of a stalwart in the line. He actually also played the most minutes of any Sounder.
Now, he was a newcomer, but I actually was looking more towards the young guys, and I really liked the UW product, wearing all my UW gear. Christian Roldan. Christian Roldan came in and played midfielder very, very well for his age. Now, it's going to take a little bit of time, and we're going to see that he and a couple of the other young guys are going to take a couple of years before they can take the jobs full time. I think of the newcomers, though, Christian Roldan's going to be a starter beginning next year.
All right, very good points. Surprises, they can be both good and bad. Let's go to Abraham. Who was the biggest surprise in the good way?
In a good way. My biggest surprise is going to harken back to what Rich said, was Tyrone Mears. I did not think that there was going to be much out of this gentleman. He's, 30? 31? And coming over from the EPL, I figured, he's going to come over thinking like he can own this. But he didn't play outside of himself. He played within himself and was a stalwart defender. The other big surprise was how good Ramon Torres was. Unfortunate injury. But this guy, the Panamanian captain, blew my mind. He is a rock-solid defender. Can't wait to see him next year play a full season, and we'll have the best defense once again in the MLS.
Now, Rich, who is the worst surprise in your mind?
Oh, man, the worst surprise.
Hand out the worst.
Well, I mean, the single worst surprise was the fact that like every single injury hit us all at once in a basically a month and a half period at the middle of the season, right after Clint Dempsey lost his mind and got suspended and then went off to Gold Cup and came back injured. But the other surprise that I would say was just kind of shocking to me is the last 3 or 4 games of the season. Obafemi Martins just didn't look right. He didn't have it. I don't know if he was injured or somebody hurt his feelings, poked him in the nose. I don't know what it was. He did not show up in that LA game, and he didn't show up in either one of the legs against Dallas. That was a shocking surprise to me.
I'm going to agree with you in that playoff series against Dallas, especially. Obafemi looked old, and so did the rest of the team, and that shocked me that an entire team looks old simultaneously.
Well, I got to cut you off there. Actually, Clint Dempsey did not look old. Clint Dempsey brought it when he was finally right and healthy at the end of the season, last like 4 or 5 games and into the playoffs. He was a stud. He looked way younger than he actually is.
I don't know. I saw Fabian Castillo and all the other young guns at FC Dallas run circles around all of our guys.
That's true. They're pretty fast. I have to admit that's the case.
So then, moving on here, I wanna kind of take a step back and pretend you're a general manager, so to speak. We supposedly we're hearing a lot of rumors that Alonso is going to be traded or moved, and I guess I want to hear your thoughts as far as what you would do, who you would bring in, where you think you'd take this team. Basically, what would you do next? I'll start with Rich. What would you do?
Alonso has been with the Sounders since the beginning. Designated player, stud, do everything midfielder. He plays a position called the 8. If you're really into soccer nerdiness like I am, which basically means he runs the whole field from end line to end line. He can come up and run the offense. He can drop back and protect the defense and go anywhere sideline to sideline. So he's kind of like a do everything player, and he's been brilliant at it. But the last 2 seasons, he's lost significant time to injury. Last season, 2015, he missed 15 games, including the playoffs. He's 29 years old. He makes $800,000, which is a huge chunk of your salary cap when you only got like $4.5 million to spend. So, yeah, I mean, it's probably time to start shopping him, especially if you have other teams out there that think he can be their missing piece. He can be their one veteran to get them over the hump. Central midfield without him was just not the same. And so trying to rely on someone who is great when he's there, but obviously leaves a gaping hole when he's not. I get why they're trying to move him. I'd love for a trade maybe to Chicago, get their defensive midfielder, Matt Polster, who's like 22, which shows lots of potential, and Chicago doesn't seem to value. So that's just a potential thing that I was thinking.
It amazes me how often Rich shows us how wrong he is. It's just not on a daily basis. It's on a per minute basis. And once again, Rich, you're wrong. You keep Alonso. The guy retires as a Sounder. He has a cut down role. He will not play in U.S. Open Cup matches. He will not be playing in CONCACAF matches. We don't need him playing in all these silly tournaments that he doesn't need to be a part of. You make sure that he's one of the guys that's taken out early. You also make sure that you give him a rest on Wednesdays and just have him play weekends. And if it takes $800,000 of the salary cap, I say do it. There is no replacement that you're going to find. Even at 29 years old, he still gets the job done.
Abe, you made 4 stupid fallacies, one right after another. You just complained that the Sounders got run off the pitch by Dallas, which they did.
Yeah.
And he's 29. The guy had hamstring surgery at the beginning of the year. Then he injured the other hamstring.
He wasn't on the field.
I get it. The sentimental thing, retire a Sounder. Yeah, I think if you can sign him and renegotiate his contract, bring him in significantly under what he was making last year, sure, do it. But above at the current salary, no way. Absolutely not. He's just too old and on the turf. It's insane to have him play. Better. And he didn't play any Open Cup or Champions League games. So what are you talking about?
I'm talking about he had a heavy schedule for his last 7 years. He's been relied on to play entire games for 7 years. They need to cut back on the total amount of games, and he will be solid. He'll be rock solid at age 30. You just take a look and see. This guy will be better than any other number 8 in the entire league.
He might be better than all of them. I don't think he'll see more than 15 games next year.
All right, so Abraham seems set on giving $800,000 to a part-time player, apparently. But
I got no problem with that.
We're going to move on now. We've mentioned a couple times. Do you want to pay
Ken Griffey Jr. $800,000 too? He can come play for the Sounders.
That's a bargain.
I don't like Ken Griffey Jr.
In baseball, that's a bargain. But anyway,
I'd rather have Trey.
Okay.
I'd rather have his brother Craig Griffey.
Griffey.
Wow.
So moving on. I want to talk about, we've mentioned a couple times, the U.S. Open Cup, CONCACAF, Champions League. Do we really care about these? Do we really want to be involved in these? I mean, they take our players away in the middle of the season. Can we, why do we bother with these? Really,
the Gold Cup this last year, I wish MLS teams had the ability to recoup their players or just ask that only one player gets taken, and that Gold Cup tournament means nothing to me. The U.S. Open Cup, Sigi Schmidt needs to realize we've already won 4 Open Cups. Mm-hmm. Let's not waste our talent on meaningless games in June when we need to be winning in November and October.
I have to say that I think that Schmidt definitely mismanaged the Open Cup game against the Timbers at Starfire. I think that the whole affair from top to bottom, from the U.S. Soccer Federation all the way down to both the Sounders and the Timbers, was just a huge cluster from start to finish. And definitely that needs to be rectified. I will say this, that Champions League matters. Champions League matters a lot. And the Sounders did really, really well. They primarily played a group of backups, which is exactly what Abe wants them to do, not play basically any of the starters. They basically played all the backups until the very last game, which was a clinching game against the hated rivals up north in the form of the Whitecaps of Vancouver. They won their group, and as a reward, they get to play Club America in February, which is certainly going to be a challenge. But I think Champions League matters a lot more than U.S. Open Cup, especially because it has everything to do with the status of the club. One of the goals that the ownership group wants them to do is to actually win the Champions League and go to the Club World Cup. That is a stated goal that Adrian Hanauer and Joe Roth have had for a number of years. So I think the Champions League matters. I think the MLS Cup matters. And I think that you'll see like the third string playing U.S. Open Cup from here on out.
All right. I want to go back to one final question. Looking overall at this past season and the past of the Sounders and looking forward towards the future, do you feel that we're on the edge? Do you feel we're at the beginning of a new era, the end of an era, business as usual, or do you think we're gonna rebuild? We're gonna start all over? Where do you think we stand?
Business as usual.
All right.
So the Sounders have just declared that Sigi Schmidt will be back for next year.
Okay.
So what this tells me is they're not going to break this whole thing up. They're not going to tear it all down. They're going to add pieces, and they're going to go win it all next year. And that game against Club America, by the way, Club America is going to try to get Fabian Castillo from the FC Dallas. Might see him again. But like Rich said, the challenge is here to get that CONCACAF, and the challenge is here to get that MLS Cup. They are not going backwards. They're not going to break it down. It's all in next year. This was our most talented team that the Sounders have ever seen.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's going to be even more talented next year. But Ramon Torres is coming back, and we'll keep all the pieces and maybe add a player or two.
All right, let's hear Rich's final thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's business as usual with a movement towards, if not Sounders 2.0, then Sounders 1.5. You're going to start seeing some of this core team be moved out, not necessarily like they're shipped off, but Clint Dempsey will probably play out his contract and maybe retire as a Sounder or go play 1 or 2 more seasons after that. Same thing with Obafemi Martins. All the main offensive players, Nelson Valdez, Ivan Schitz, Freiberg, are all in that late 20s, early 30s time frame. and so they just don't have that much more time to go. I think you're going to see major push by the Sounders management as well to start integrating a few more players from the academy, from S2, and hopefully we can get a certain standout Pac-12 men's soccer player of the year in the form of Jordan Morris. Hopefully we can get him signed and brought into the fold.
They offered him the biggest salary for a player coming out of school.
Absolutely, and rightfully so. He spotted the Pac-12 field a fourth of the season, and he still won the Player of the Year. So that's how good he is, and he is the real deal. Jurgen Klinsmann, the U.S. men's national team coach, keeps calling him up for national team duty, and rightfully so. So definitely good things coming. If
I can just add one thing to that, Rich, I agree with you. I think what you're going to see are the role players, such as Rose, as a Bennett. Some of the aging role players, they will be the ones wiped out. The stars are going to stay, but the role players are going to be replaced with younger, faster talent.
Yeah, I totally agree that the role players are going to be moved on out. I also think this is the end of the time line for Lamar Nagel, who just couldn't find the field once all the new additions were healthy and in the fold.
I think your Pinedas and Papas are gone as well.
I think Pineda's definitely gone. Marco Papa, I think he's borderline. He's so talented. I don't know if the Sounders really want to move him. And his salary is so low comparatively. It's a really low salary, and that's always valuable. The other thing to note is the one guy who absolutely under no circumstances will ever be moved, at least not this year, is Brad Evans. He's here for sure to stay 100%. One question for you, Abe. Name one guy that if the Sounders moved him, you're like done. You're crushed. You're a squashed little shell of your current self.
Chad Marshall. If they decide that he's too old, or if they get into some sort of contract dispute with him, that's the guy you got to pay. He makes that back line. But I almost feel like the reason why they went and got Ramon Torres is because there might be something up.
Mm-hmm. I have to I kind of feel you there. The one guy that I feel at this point that if the Sounders decided to move, I'd be so infuriated, is actually the goalkeeper Stefan Fry. He was so good, so underrated, so put on an island so many times, and he was just absolutely fantastic. And I will be so sad if he's traded or let to walk away from the Sounders. Not that I expected, but that's the guy for me right now.
All right, well, that's it for tonight for this episode of Rave Green Magazine. Like us on Facebook, check us out. We're at SeattleSideUp.com. I want to thank soccer editor for Seattle Side Up, Rich Michelson, and Abraham DeWeese, our editor-in-chief, once again for their views on the review of the season for the Seattle Sounders. Like us on Facebook. Check us out at SeattleSideUp.com. Check us out, subscribe us on YouTube. Check us out on Twitter even. We're everywhere at Seattle Side Up. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.